Jake's eyes flew open. He gasped for air, lungs burning, chest rising and falling fast. Darkness was all around him. A heavy weight pressed against his chest. He tried to sit up, but he couldn't. Something, or someone, was on top of him. He blinked again and again. His vision adjusted, and then he saw her. Not human. A girl, maybe his age or younger, with soft glowing skin, big eyes like stars, and strange markings across her face. She had long white hair, tied in messy braids. She was sitting on top of him, knees on either side of his hips, holding a small glowing stone to his chest. Jake's heart pounded hard. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could, she shouted in a fast, sharp, alien language. She wasn't screaming in fear. She was chanting, crying, like a prayer mixed with panic. Her hands were shaking, but she didn't stop. The stone glowed brighter, burning into his shirt. Jake groaned, feeling heat spread through his chest. What are you doing?" he whispered. The girl's eyes widened. She kept chanting, her voice trembling, tears starting to fall from her cheeks. Jake tried to move again, but she pushed him down harder. The pain in his chest was growing, the glow getting hotter, brighter until it exploded in a silent flash of white light. Then everything went black. When he woke again, the world was quieter. Soft wind moved through the trees above him. He was no longer inside the escape pod. He was lying on grass under the sky too. Moons hung above him, glowing blue and silver. He sat up slowly, blinking. His body felt different. He touched his chest where the stone had burned him. No wound, no pain, not even a scar. Only a small, strange mark, like a glowing tattoo in the shape of a star. Jake looked around, heart still pounding. The girl was gone. But her scent still lingered in the air, sweet, like flowers and fire. He stood up, weak but alive. "How long was I out?" he whispered, looking toward the crash site. His escape pod was split open like a broken egg, smoke rising, no signs of life. His communicator was fried. No weapons and no food. He remembered the girl again, the panic in her voice, the heat of the stone, and how she cried when she did it. She wasn't trying to kill him. She was trying to save him. But why? Jake started walking through the jungle. Following the broken plants and crushed leaves, her trail was easy to find. He didn't know why he was following her, but something inside told him he had to. Then he heard it. Screams, alien cries of fear and pain, coming from deeper in the jungle. Jake ran toward the sound without thinking, branches whipping his face, feet crashing over roots and stones. He burst into a clearing, and there she was, the alien girl, surrounded by two large beasts. Gray fur, long teeth, and burning red eyes. They snarled at her, slowly moving in. The girl stood frozen, bleeding from her shoulder, holding a small rock like it would protect her. Then she saw Jake, and her eyes widened in shock. She screamed one word, her voice full of desperation: "Protect her." Jake didn't understand why she said that, but something inside him moved like a fire lit up in his blood. He picked up a sharp stick from the ground and charged at the beasts. Yelling with everything he had, the first beast turned just in time to catch a jab to its eye. It roared and fell back. The second leapt, but Jake rolled under it, stabbing it in the belly. Blood sprayed. Both beasts fled, howling into the forest. Jake dropped the stick, panting. His hands were shaking, covered in blood. But he was alive. So was the girl. She stared at him with wide eyes, then slowly dropped the rock she was holding. She took a step toward him and pressed her glowing hand to his chest again, but this time gently. "No more," she said, finally speaking his language through a translator necklace. "I marked you. I'm sorry, but you are the only one who could protect me." Jake stared at her. "What did you do to me?" he asked. The girl looked down, her voice soft. I made a bond, she whispered. You live. I live, you die. I die, Jake's breath caught in his throat. He didn't know whether to feel angry or scared or something else entirely. He had just woken up on a strange planet, healed by a glowing alien girl, and now, somehow, they were tied together forever, and he didn't even know her name. Jake sat near a small fire. Watching the alien girl across from him, she was sitting with her knees pulled to her chest, arms wrapped around her legs. Her eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight. The forest around them was quiet, but Jake's mind was full of noise. So, he said slowly, you bonded me. She didn't answer. She just looked at him, silent, waiting like a storm was still inside her. He leaned forward, voice tense. You said if one of us dies. The other dies too. She nodded. Almost ashamed, I didn't choose this. She whispered, I needed it. Jake stared into the fire. His shirt was torn where the stone had burned him, and the glowing star-shaped mark still pulsed faintly. On his chest, it didn't hurt, but it felt heavy like a chain he never asked for. What's your name? He asked finally. The girl blinked. Surprised, she looked up slowly. Sarah. She said, my name is Sarah. Jake gave a short nod. Okay, Sarah. You better explain everything. She took a deep breath, her voice soft and even. My people. We are hunted, she began. Not for war or land, but for what's inside us. She held up her hand, and her palm glowed softly. The same light as the stone, we can heal others, repair wounds, even bring someone back from the war. Edge of death, Jake's eyes widened. Is that what you did to me? Yes, she nodded. But healing like that drains our life energy, and if we give too much, we die. She looked away, ashamed. I've used that power too many times. For people who betrayed me, sold me, traded me like a tool. Tears touched her eyes. Now I'm alone, the last of my kind. Jake felt something in his chest. He didn't know if it was anger or sympathy. So you forced the bond to stay alive? Yes, she said without looking up. I'm sorry, Jake. But I was dying, and you were the only living soul nearby. I had no choice. He didn't answer. He stood up, walked a few steps into the jungle, and stared at the stars through the treetops. Everything had changed in just one day. Crashing on a planet was bad enough. Now he was magically tied to a glowing alien girl with enemies hunting her. Jake turned back to her. And now what? He asked. What do we do? Sarah stood slowly. We survive, she said, because if we don't, we both die. They started walking through the forest the next morning. Sarah moved with grace, like she was born in the trees. Jake struggled to keep up, swatting vines and brushing away bugs. He had a headache. Atena, his stomach, growled loudly. Sarah looked back and tossed him a small red fruit. He caught it, sniffed it, and raised an eyebrow. It won't kill you, she said with a tiny smile. Jake shrugged and took a bite. Surprised, it tasted sweet like apples and honey. They walked in. Silence for a while. Jake finally spoke. Why did you call me protector when those beasts attacked? Sarah glanced back at him, her face unreadable. Because once the bond is made, your instincts shift, your body reacts faster, your strength increases. Jake blinked. You're telling me I have powers now? Not powers, she said. But enhancements. The bond keeps you strong so I can stay alive. He looked down at his hands, flexing his fingers. No wonder I stabbed that thing so easily. As they reached a small hill, Sarah suddenly stopped. Her head tilted too. The side, eyes narrowing. What is it? Jake asked. She raised her hand, signaling silence. Then he heard it too. Buzzing. Faint in the distance, metallic, unnatural. Sarah's face turned pale. They found me, she whispered. Jake's heart raced. Who? Hunters, she replied. They track our energy, and they won't stop until I'm dead. Jake's instinct screamed at him to run, to hide, to escape this crazy mess. But when he looked at Asira scared but standing tall, facing the danger, he knew he wouldn't leave her. Then let's not let them find us, he said. They ran into the deeper jungle. Following a stream, Asira led the way to a small cave hidden behind a waterfall. Inside, they sat close, listening for the buzz of the hunters. Jake's breath was loud in the silence. Asira leaned against the wall. Exhausted, he looked at her, really looked at her. Not just the glowing skin or alien markings, but her eyes. They were tired, full of pain, but also strong. I didn't ask for this, Jake said quietly. But I'm not going to let you die. Asira looked up at him, surprised. Why? She whispered. Jake shrugged. Because, maybe? I'm not just your bond, he said. Maybe I'm your friend too, for the first time. Asira smiled. A real, soft, thankful smile. And for the first time. Jake didn't feel like a prisoner anymore. He felt like a protector. The night was cold inside the cave. Water dripped slowly from the rocks. And the sound echoed softly in the dark. Jake lay awake, staring at the low ceiling above. Asira was asleep near the entrance, curled up on some leaves and cloth she had gathered. Her back was to him, but her faint glow still lit the cave like a dying candle. Jake couldn't sleep. Too many thoughts rushed in his head. A strange world, a glowing alien girl, a bond that tied their lives together. And now, hunters were after them. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and whispered, "What did I get myself into?" By morning, the sound of buzzing was gone. The danger had passed, for now. Asira woke first and stood quietly, arms crossed as she looked out through the waterfall. Jake joined her, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. "Do you think they'll come back?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "They always do," she said. "They never stop, not until the bond is broken, or I'm dead." Jake frowned. "You said something before about the bond being ancient." "Yes," Asira replied. "It's not just a healing method. It's a survival ritual from the old times." She sat down near the water and placed her hand on the stone floor. Her fingers glowed slightly as she traced a symbol. Circle with two lines connecting at the center. "This is the sign of the life chain," she said. "My ancestors used it when they were near death and needed a living soul to hold on to." Jake sat beside her, listening carefully. "So you weren't just saving yourself," he said. "You were following your people's law." She nodded. "Yes, but there's more." Asira looked at him, eyes serious. "The bond works both ways, not just life or death." Jake raised an eyebrow. "What else is connected?" he asked. "Pain, emotions, sometimes memories," she whispered. "If I feel fear, you might feel it too." Jake blinked, surprised. "So if you're sad, I cry, and you feel a strange sadness without knowing why," she finished. He leaned back and let that sink in. It explained the strange headache he had the day before. The sudden anger when the beasts attacked her. It wasn't just instincts. He had been feeling her fear as his own. Jake looked at her again. "You've been carrying all that alone?" Asira gave a small smile. "Until now." Later that day, they left the cave and climbed higher into the mountain forest. Asira said it would be harder for the hunters to track them there. The trees grew thick, the air cold but peaceful. For the first time, Jake felt like they had a small advantage. He looked at Asira, walking ahead, her white braids swaying as she moved. He still didn't understand everything, but he was starting to trust her, and somehow he knew she was starting to trust him too. They stopped near a rocky cliff to rest. Jake chewed on more of the red fruit, while Asira sat quietly with her hands in her lap. After a while, she said softly, "Do you miss your people?" Jake looked up at the sky. "I miss Earth," he said. "The sky, the food, even the traffic. I miss my sister too. She always worried about me. Asara smiled gently. It must be nice, having someone who waits for you. Jake saw the loneliness in her eyes again. What about you? He asked. My people are gone, she said. Taken, sold, erased. I was supposed to die too, but I ran. She touched the bond mark on his chest. Glowing faintly through his shirt, this was never meant to be used on someone from another world. But I was desperate. Jake didn't answer for a long moment. Then he said, I'm still here. That night, they built a small fire between the rocks. Asara sat beside it, staring into the flames. Jake asked her something that had been bothering him. If this bond is so dangerous, why don't you just end it? Asara looked up slowly, pain flashing in her eyes. Because to break it, one of us must die, she whispered. Jake's breath caught. That's the only way. She nodded. It was made to protect life, not to be undone lightly. Breaking it is considered a curse. Jake looked down at the glowing mark again. He didn't ask more. He just understood one thing, whether he liked it or not: their lives were one now. Suddenly, Asara gasped, grabbing her chest. Jake felt a sharp pain in his own chest too, like a stab of fear. What is it? He asked. They're near, she said quickly. The hunters are coming again. She stood up fast, her eyes glowing bright. Jake grabbed his small pack, ready to move, but Asara stopped him. No, she said. This time we stand and face them. I can't keep running. Jake stared at her, unsure. We don't even have weapons. Asara held up a small glowing crystal in her hand. We have this, she said. It's not strong, but it can protect us for a moment. Jake looked into her eyes and saw something new: courage. And for the first time, he felt something else inside himself. Not fear, but fire. Then let's fight, he said, together. Lightning cracked through the sky like a whip. The winds howled as if the planet itself was screaming. Dark clouds rolled fast over the treetops, and rain began to fall in heavy sheets. Jake and Asara ran through the jungle, soaked and breathless. Chased by more than just the weather, the hunters were close behind. They didn't speak. There was no time. Just the sound of feet pounding mud, branches slapping against arms, and thunder shaking the ground. Asara clutched the glowing crystal close to her chest as they ran. Jake glanced back. No sign of their pursuers yet, but he knew they were coming. Up ahead, Asara pointed toward a ledge. Old wreck, she shouted, barely heard over the rain. Jake followed her across slippery rocks and thick roots until they reached a broken alien ship. Long forgotten, buried half in mud and covered in vines. It was cracked open like an old shell, but still offered shelter. They crawled inside just as the wind roared harder behind them. Inside, it was dark, rusted, and full of dripping water. But it was better than being outside. Jake slumped against a wall, coughing. Asara lit the crystal and placed it on a flat surface, casting a soft blue light around them. Jake wiped water from his face and looked at her. Do you think they saw us come in here? Asara shook her head slowly. Not sure, but we can't run anymore. We need rest. They sat in silence, both breathing heavily, listening to the storm crash outside. Asara wrapped her arms around herself, shivering slightly. Jake noticed, took off his outer shirt and handed it to her without saying a word. She hesitated, then accepted it with a quiet, thank you. The moment was small, but something changed between them. Hours passed, the storm raged on, and the walls groaned with every blast of wind. Jake couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the hunters, the bond, and Asara's words about pain and emotion being shared. He looked at her, sitting on the other side of the broken cabin, her eyes closed, hands resting on her knees. She wasn't glowing anymore, just quiet, like a normal girl hiding from the world. Do you miss your people? Jake asked softly. Asara opened her eyes slowly, surprised by the question. Yes, she said. But sometimes I wonder if they'd even recognize me now. Jake leaned forward. What do you mean? I've changed, she replied. I was supposed to be a guardian of life, a healer. Not someone running for survival, not someone forcing bonds just to stay alive. Jake watched her carefully. You did what you had to do, he said. To survive, that's not weakness, Sarah. Looked at him, eyes wet with emotion, even if it meant tying your life to mine without permission. Jake nodded slowly. Even then, suddenly, Asara sat up straight, her head turning sharply toward the rusted door. Jake felt it too, a wave of dread in his chest. Not his own, hers. They're close. She whispered. He grabbed a piece of metal that looked sharp and stood ready. Asara walked to the wall and touched it, whispering something in her language. Blue light ran along the old ship's surface. It was a shield activation spell. Weak, but it might buy time. The sound of footsteps echoed outside, metal feet clanging against the wet surface. Voices cold and robotic, speaking in a language Jake didn't understand. Asara stood beside him now, calm but focused. They're not alive like us, she said. They're machines built to hunt my kind. They smell the energy. Jake tightened his grip. Then let's not give them a chance to take it. A loud bang, the broken door burst open, and 3 tall hunters stepped inside, metal skin, glowing red eyes, long sharp weapons in their arms. They scanned the room and locked onto Asara instantly. Jake didn't wait. He threw the sharp metal at the first hunter, hitting it in the head. The thing didn't fall, but staggered back, sparks flying. Asara raised the glowing crystal high and shouted a word of power. Light exploded, knocking the hunters off balance. Jake rushed forward, grabbing another pipe. Swinging it with all his strength, he smashed one hunter to the floor. But the second slashed at him, cutting his arm. Pain shot through him, but he stayed up. He saw Asara bleeding from the same place, her arm. The bond was real and deep. She screamed and pushed both hands toward the last hunter. A wave of energy burst out, slamming it against the wall with a loud crunch. Silence returned, except for the storm outside. Jake dropped the pipe, panting. They had one, but barely. Kala collapsed to her knees. Gasping, Jake rushed to her side. You okay? She nodded weakly. Used too much energy. I'll be fine. He helped her sit down, resting against the wall. Next time, he said, we make a plan. Asara smiled weakly. Next time. You lead. Jake looked at the broken hunters on the ground. His chest still burned from the fight. But something else burned stronger, his connection to her. He didn't just feel bonded anymore. He felt responsible. For her life, for her safety, and maybe for her heart too. The broken hunters lay scattered across the floor. The wrecked ship groaned under the weight of the fading storm. Outside, the wind slowed, the rain softened. And the jungle whispered again. Inside, Jake sat beside Asara, wrapping a cloth around her wounded arm. The glow in her skin was dim, but her eyes stayed focused. We can't stay here long, she said softly. Jake nodded. They'll send more. Asira held the glowing crystal in her lap, now faint, like a dying ember. I used too much energy, she whispered. I need time to recover. Jake looked around the wreck, searching for anything useful. Then his eyes caught something, a metal box, half buried under a pile of broken panels. What's this? He muttered, pulling it out. The box popped open, revealing wires, a cracked screen, and a familiar blinking light. Jake's heart skipped. A transmitter, he whispered. It's part of my escape pod. Asira looked at it, her eyes slowly widening. That could send a signal, she said. Call for help. Jake grinned, for the first time in days. I could use this to contact the rescue teams. Get off this planet. He didn't see Asara's smile fade. She turned her head away, hiding her eyes. Over the next few hours, Jake worked on fixing the transmitter. He used broken tools, stripped wires, and scraps from the alien wreck Asera. Rested quietly nearby, eyes closed, breathing slowly. She seemed distant, not just tired, but troubled. Jake finally finished repairing the beacon. He raised it and pressed the button. Nothing happened. He frowned and checked the back. No power source, he muttered. Asera opened her eyes slowly, her voice low. "I could charge it," she said. "But..." Jake looked up. "But what?" Asera hesitated. "If I use my energy again, I might fall unconscious." Jake looked at her. "Are you sure?" She nodded slowly. "If this is your only chance to call help, I'll do it." He handed the beacon to her. She took a deep breath, placed both hands on it, and closed her eyes. Light flowed from her skin into the machine. It hummed, buzzed, and finally lit up with a strong green glow. The signal was active. Jake's eyes lit up with hope. "It's working," he said. Then Asera collapsed. Jake caught her before she hit the ground. Her body was cold, weak, the glow from her skin gone completely. He laid her gently down on the floor, panic rising in his chest. "Asera, stay with me," he whispered. Her eyes fluttered open for just a second. "Don't worry," she whispered. "I'll wake up. Just tired." Then she went still, breathing faint but steady. Jake sat beside her, gripping her hand. The transmitter beeped, sending its call into the stars. Help was coming, but Jake didn't feel peace. He felt guilt. She gave everything to power it, and, for the first time, he wondered, what would happen to her if humans really came? The next morning, Asera woke slowly, her body still weak. Jake helped her sit up and gave her fruit and water. She looked at the blinking beacon and asked softly, "How long before they arrive?" Jake sighed. "If they hear it. Maybe a day or two." He paused, then added, "Asera, when they come, they'll want to take you in, maybe study you." She looked at him, calm but unreadable. "I know," she said. "That's why I tried to stop you from using the signal." Jake blinked, surprised. "What do you mean?" She looked down, hands in her lap. "I knew that part of your escape pod was in this wreck. I saw it earlier, but I didn't tell you." Jake stood up, heart pounding. "You were going to hide it." "Yes," she said quietly, "because if they come, they'll take you away from here, and I'll be left behind, or worse, captured." Jake stared at her, shocked. "But why didn't you tell me?" Asera looked into his eyes, voice shaking. "Because I didn't want to lose you." Silence fell, thick and heavy. Jake sat down slowly, his anger fading, replaced by confusion and something else, something deeper. "You were scared," he whispered. She nodded. "I've always been alone, always running, always hiding. But with you, I didn't feel alone." Jake looked at the beacon, still blinking, then at her. "Do you still want me to leave?" He asked. Asera said nothing for a moment, then replied, "I want you to live, even if it means I lose you." Jake took her hand in his. "I'm not going anywhere unless you come too." Asara's eyes filled with tears, but this time they weren't from pain, they were from hope. As the sun rose higher, the two sat together, watching the sky. Neither knew what the next day would bring. But for now, they had each other, and even if the stars answered Jake's signal, he had already made his choice. He wasn't going home without her. Night came with an eerie silence. The jungle didn't sing. The trees didn't whisper. Even the wind held its breath. Jake felt it deep in his bones. Something was wrong. He stood outside the wrecked ship, holding a long metal pipe like a spear. The transmitter continued blinking behind him, its green light flashing in the dark like a heartbeat. Asera sat inside, still recovering, but alert now. She had a strange look on her face, not fear, but focus. Jake turned to her. "What's out there?" Sarah didn't answer at first. Then she whispered, "They're coming. And this time, it's not scouts. It's the full group." Jake felt a cold chill slide down his back. "How many?" "At least 6. Maybe more," she said. Her voice tight. "They've found us. This is it." Jake gripped the pipe tighter. "Then let's make it count." They spent the next hour preparing. Jake set traps using the wreckage sharp metal in the grass, tripwires made of vine, and hidden pits covered with leaves. Asira used what little energy she had left to enchant the crystal again, but this time not for attack. She was building a shield. One that could cover the wreckage just long enough for them to fight back. "You don't have to do this, Jake," told her. "If we run now, maybe no." She cut him off. "We can't run forever. They'll chase us until we're dead. This is our chance to fight back." Jake looked at her, her skin pale, the glow dim. But her eyes steady. She wasn't the same scared girl who had pinned him down in the jungle. She was a survivor. And she had chosen to stand. So he stood with her. The jungle cracked open with mechanical roars. Red lights flickered between the trees, and heavy steps shook the ground. Jake crouched behind a stone. Waiting, heart pounding in his chest, Asira stood inside the shield. Hands pressed to the crystal, her body glowing faintly as it absorbed her strength. The hunters came into view tall, metallic, armed with long energy blades and sharp claws. They moved as one, red eyes scanning. Locked onto the blinking transmitter light, the first one stepped into a trap. A hidden spike burst through its chest, making it collapse in sparks. The second tripped over a vine and fell into a pit, but the rest kept coming. Learning fast, adapting, Jake leaped out, swinging his pipe with full force. He slammed it into the head of a hunter, sending it crashing into a tree. The others turned on him instantly. 3 hunters rushed at once. Jake blocked the first blade, ducked under the second, but the third slashed his shoulder. He cried out in pain but kept swinging. The bond flared in his chest, hot and burning, but it gave him strength. He didn't know if it was his power or Asira's, but it kept him standing. Asira raised her hand, and the shield around the ship expanded, knocking two hunters backward, but she stumbled, her knees hitting the ground. Jake looked back and shouted, "Stay up. We're almost through this." She forced herself back up, holding the crystal tighter. The light grew brighter again, wrapping around her like armor. 2 more hunters fell, one to a trap and one to Jake's pipe, but there were still 3 left, and they were faster now, smarter. One grabbed Jake and slammed him into the ground. His head rang, vision blurred. He saw the claws rise about to strike, then Asira screamed. Her voice echoed like a blast. She held the crystal above her head, both hands glowing bright white. The energy exploded in a wide wave, pure force, throwing every hunter back like paper in the wind. The crystal shattered in her hands. She collapsed again. Jake rolled over, coughing, the hunter that attacked him sparking and broken nearby. He crawled to her side, pulled her into his arms. Her body was weak, skin cold, and she wasn't breathing. "No, no, no," Jake whispered. "Don't do this, Asira. Stay with me." He pressed his forehead to hers, feeling the bond burn between them. It pulsed once, then twice, then faded to nothing. The mark on his chest stopped glowing. Silence filled the jungle. No more hunters, no more danger, but Jake didn't feel relief. He only held her closer, whispering her name again and again. Then, just as he thought he had lost her, a faint light returned to her skin. Her chest rose slowly, and she took a small, shaky breath. Her eyes opened, weak but alive. "Jake," she whispered. "I'm here," he said. "You're safe." She tried to sit up, but he held her gently. "I felt it," she whispered. "The bond, it almost broke." "But it didn't," he said. Because I wouldn't let it. She smiled faintly. You stayed, I always will, he replied, later. As the first light of dawn touched the jungle, Jake sat with Asara in his arms, watching the sky. The transmitter was silent now, its last signal sent. The wreckage around them was full of smoke, broken metal, and fallen enemies. But the girl he had once feared, once been bonded to by force, was now someone he would die for, not because of a mark on his chest, but because of the place she had carved in his heart. The jungle was quiet again. The storm had passed. The machines were destroyed. And the fire in the sky was turning gold. Jake sat on a rock, Asara resting against him. Her head leaned on his shoulder, eyes closed, breathing calm and soft. For the first time since the crash, they weren't running, fighting, or hiding. They were just still. The silence was almost peaceful till a sharp beep echoed through the wreckage. Jake looked toward the blinking transmitter. The light had changed. It was now bright blue. He stood slowly, lifting Asara with him. She opened her eyes and followed his gaze. They heard it, Jake said, voice almost a whisper. They're coming. An hour later. The sky cracked with thunder, not from a storm, but from a ship. A silver human rescue vessel hovered above the treetops, scanning the jungle below. It was loud, powerful, nothing like the broken wrecks below. Jake's heart pounded. He had dreamed of rescue, of being taken home, of seeing Earth again, of feeling sunlight that wasn't alien. But now, things felt different. Asara stood beside him. Her skin still pale, her body still weak. She held his hand tightly, saying nothing. Her eyes were on the sky, but her mind was far away. Jake knew what she was thinking. The humans might not see her as a survivor. They might see her as a threat, an unknown species tied to one of their own. What if they take you away from me? She asked, voice soft. Jake looked at her. Then I'll choose, he said firmly. I'm not letting them decide for us. The rescue ship landed with a loud hiss, its side doors opening. 3 armored humans stepped out to soldiers. And a medic. Jake raised his hands peacefully. The soldiers pointed scanners at him, then blinked in shock when they saw Asara beside him. The medic stepped forward, scanning Jake first. You're lucky to be alive, she said. We've been tracking your pod signal for days. Jake nodded. I'm not alone, he said, motioning to Asara. She's the reason I survived. The soldiers looked unsure. She's not listed in any known species, one muttered. We need to bring her in for study. Asara stepped back, her hands squeezing Jake's. Jake moved in front of her. She's coming with me. As an equal, not a test subject, but she's bonded to you, the medic said. That could be dangerous. Jake pulled open his shirt, showing the faded star mark. The bond isn't a threat. It saved both our lives. It's part of me now. And I won't let you tear it away. The soldiers hesitated. Then the medic nodded slowly. If you take responsibility, she'll be treated as your guest, not prisoner. Jake looked back at Asara, who stared at him with wide, wet eyes. Are you sure? She whispered. He smiled. I'm not going anywhere without you. They entered the ship together. Hand in hand, the walls were clean, smooth, and filled with Earth tech. Screens showed stars, maps, faces of the crew. Everything felt so human, so familiar. And yet, Jake felt like a stranger here now. The medic guided them to a room with soft beds, clean clothes, and warm light. Jake helped Asara sit down. The crew gave them food, fresh water, and even offered medical support. But Asara stayed quiet, watching everything with cautious eyes. Later that night, Jake sat beside her, the stars outside the window glowing like silver dust. Do you trust them? She asked. I trust myself, he said, and I trust us. She leaned her head on his shoulder again. I thought I'd be alone forever. She whispered, but I found you. Jake smiled, and I found something worth fighting for. The next day, the captain asked Jake if he wanted to return to Earth or be dropped at a neutral space station. Jake looked at Sarah, then turned back to the captain. "We'll go where we're free to live together," he said. "That's all that matters." The captain nodded. "There's a planet near the outer colonies, peaceful, quiet, and open to settlers. It's yours if you want it." Jake looked at Sarah. She nodded slowly, a small smile forming. "Yes," she said. "Let's make it our home." Weeks later, they stood on new soil. Under a blue sky filled with twin suns, a small house waited in the distance, surrounded by wild trees and glowing flowers. It was nothing like Earth, and nothing like Sarah's. Lost world, but it was theirs. Jake wrapped his arm around her. "So," he asked playfully, "any other alien secrets I should know about?" Sarah laughed softly. "Well, I'm still figuring out human hugs." Jake pulled her close. "Good thing we've got time." And together they walked forward, not as a prisoner and a survivor, not as a human and an alien, but as two souls bound by fate, by fire, and by choice.